Who is this?
My name's Craig Schmidt.
Hey, Craig. Sure, fire it up. Can you guys wait but can you guys hear the background? I have the air conditioner on in this office. Is it bothering anybody?
No.
No.
Okay, great.
Not at all.
All right.
Mike?
Looks like we're recording. Right?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael, the chairman of the Parking Authority for Norwalk, better known as the Norwalk Parking Authority. And we are here at our monthly meeting at the end of April. It's 4/28 at 6 o'clock. I'm going to kick this off with the first thing on our agenda, which is always the public comments. So let's hear from the public. Is there anybody out there?
Yes, we have one guest, Todd Zubrinsky.
And does Todd wish to take a few minutes to talk to us about something?
Todd, you want to unmute?
The public comments. So let's hear from the public. Is there anybody out there?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we have one guest, Todd Zubrinsky.
Okay.
And does
So
Todd
yes.
wish to take a few minutes to talk?
Yes, please. Am I on mute or can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, Todd. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I own Connecticut Surgical at 14 Main Street, and I just had a small issue. I was just wondering, I know in a couple other parts of town, the parking authority has allowed a couple 15-minute spots in some lots. And my clientele is compromised pretty much of senior citizens. And they come in for 5 to 10 minutes at the most. And all I hear is, why do I have to pay to park? And if we just had 1 or 2 15-minute spots, it would make it a lot easier for the seniors at the 14 Main Street lot.
That's the mechanics lot, right? No, that's
No,
Main
it's the
Street
main-
behind
main
the
wall,
behind the surgical build, behind the.
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
And tell me a little bit more about, and that's a lot.
It's a pay lot. Every spot is paid. Even the handicap spots have to pay. And I'm just requesting to see if we can get even 1 or 2 just 15-minute spots where people could just pull up, come in, get what they need, a walker, a wheelchair, and they're out of there in 5 or 10 minutes without paying for parking.
Understood, Todd. Thank you so much. We'll take that into consideration. Absolutely. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Do we have any other people out there? Any other constituents would like to say anything to us? I can't see if there's anybody else out there, so. I'm going to take that silence as a no. I don't think there's anybody else out there. So let's continue on with our meeting, shall we? Action related to the minutes of the Parking Authority meeting Wednesday, March 24, 2020. Does anybody have any updates, corrections, or changes? I had one change that I could not find again. Hold on one second. Should be here. Oh no, it's actually in this week's agenda that has a typo in it, not last month's. So last month's, I'm good. All right, so let's make a motion to accept as written the minutes from the March meeting.
Move approval.
Judd is going to approve that. Eric's going to second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We got our ayes. That is unanimous. Good. All right. I like it. Let's continue. I don't really have much in terms of a chairman's report today, although I do want to speak briefly towards the great job that we're doing. I've been on a number of different Zoom calls with some towns, other boards, and some other projects that I'm working on in some other towns, and I've noticed that everybody seems very unhappy in these Zoom meetings. And the truth is, with the programs that we have, the courtesy cards, and the way we've been working our parking authority, it's been going really, really well, and people are very happy. There's always a few problems, but they're so minimal. And my example of that is that I pulled a statistic out from our numbers for the percentage of tickets given incorrectly. So everybody, you get a ticket and then you bring it in and fight it, or you pay it, or it's always specifically for a reason, overtime or whatever the reason is. Very, very rarely is a ticket given that is incorrect, and that percentage is 0.015. It's a fabulous, fabulous percentage, and it's a number we should keep in the back of our minds, because there are tickets given in our industry and in our city, and we are responsible for giving out violations when rules are broken. But the fact that we are giving basically almost zero incorrect tickets is phenomenal, and we need to be proud of that. I keep beating that drum of our restaurants and our business owners speaking positively about the parking authority, because it will help their business. When a restaurant owner speaks negatively about a parking incident or a ticket, it only hurts that business. It only hurts himself. He's only hurting himself. And so I want to continue on the record here to say, the more we speak positive about how well things are going, the better things are going to go. So get that message out there when you're talking to your people, or when you hear somebody talking negatively about the parking authority, or at all. The truth is, the numbers don't lie, and we're doing a phenomenal job. We really are. So that's what I got for the report. Now, let's go straight into financial and operating. I guess there he is, Stock. A view from your office. Nice background, buddy.
I wish, right?
Yes.
And thanks for that update on the number too, that percentage. Let me share my screen here.
Yep.
And I am going to share the ops report that I just updated, because there was one piece of information that wasn't on there, and that was related to Judd's report. He wanted a column for averages, so I'm going to share that one instead.
Okay.
So that way we can go through that. Yeah. So maybe before I get into the ops report, I can give you maybe a quick update, if you don't mind, on items from the last meeting.
Please.
So there were, so I'm starting to try to get to the action items and report on those from the previous meeting, so you know where we are. So, and the first one was actually inserting the column of averages in Judd's report. So that's done, and you'll see that as we go through. The vegetable garden was something that came up last month, where we haven't completed that. We're still working on a plan so we can review with staff and then present. And then the last item was some quotes on painting at Haviland, and I'll let Rocky fill you in, but we've got one quote and I think he's waiting on. Right, Rock?
Yes, we have, we've gotten one quote from one vendor and we're waiting, we did a walkthrough of the Haviland deck, and so we got 3 vendors that walked through the garage, the deck, and one has submitted the pricing, and we're waiting on 2 vendors.
Okay, thanks, Rocky. And then an update on some of the initiatives that we've been working on and some of the ongoing ones. So the real-time communications with the handhelds, that is working. It's confirmed and working. Now we just need to have the $5 discount for same-day payment programmed. So that should be, I'm not sure the timeline on that, but I think that's going to be pretty quick, right, Rocky?
That should take another 2 or 3 weeks, and we should have some numbers for, how many people use that online payment.
Stathis, does that mean somebody gets a ticket and they can then pull up something on their phone and pay the ticket?
That's the idea. So the next initiative was the QR code initiative that we were going to put on the front of the ticket so they could scan and pay, and that would link to that discount as well. So that program has already started too. Right after the last board meeting, Rocky had initiated that with our vendor. They said 6 to 8 weeks of programming. So we're hoping in the next couple weeks that it should be done. So hopefully at the next board meeting, we'll have a report on that. And then the last piece was we were talking about the handheld LPR system. So it could be, instead of with the vehicle, they could do it on foot instead of programming or typing in keystrokes for license plate. So they just scan it with the camera on the phone. And that is implementing, and it's working. It's working now. It's live. Rocky can give us kind of an update on how that's actually going. Is it been working like we expect?
Yes, that has been live the past 3 weeks, and we've tested it, and it's reading plates. And instead of enforcement officers actually typing the license plate of a vehicle, they're actually scanning it, and a picture pops up and shows them what the plate number is. They'll confirm. So we'll have that has actually improved the quality of the violation tickets that we issue as Captain Mike, as you mentioned earlier. So that's another improvement that we've done on issuance of tickets.
Thanks, Rocky. So now I'll move on to the financial and operating report. So
Wait a second.
Yes.
That's a big deal. I love that. So that was Jim, right? Jim, did you bring that to the table? The real-time thing? Where the hell is Jim?
you mean the real-time communication?
Yeah.
He's muted.
Yeah, it was always a capability that we didn't have on, and
Yeah.
now it's on.
Jim mentioned that, and we got that on, and I think that's
Yes.
huge because I've had people ask me for that, that $5, let me just get this paid sort of thing, and yet they've had to wait, and it's all right. So Jim, gold star, buddy. I'm putting it next to your name.
Sorry, I was also muted, so I didn't realize it. Yeah.
That's okay. We still like you muted.
All right, thanks.
Good job. All right, so
I think that's a compliment. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, stop.
So for the month, we do have an operating loss, but it is getting better. If you look at the expense side, the debt service has gone up almost double. That was significant. So that was a big contributing factor to the operating loss. Revenues. I'll jump back up to revenues for a second.
All I see is the operations report.
Yeah.
Front page, rather. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Okay, so the revenue is almost 40% under budget. But we are, improving. We're seeing more activity compared to year to date. We're still off about 49%. And compared to last year, it's off 46%. On the expense side, we're off 16% to budget. And year to date, we're off about 29%. And actual year to date to last year, we're off about almost 22%. So on the expense side, like we were talking about, debt service went up, and then, we still have snow removal costs in for this month. So we're optimistic that we're definitely going to be on the right track for next month. There's definitely more activity that we see in throughout the system.
Excellent.
So you can see the uptick in March that we had. Demands are down 43%. And we assumed we would be at like 50% of pre-COVID. So we're kind of right on there. Do you want me to go through each one of these, or should I assume that people have looked at it, or permits?
No, we can assume everybody's looked at it. They're very good at that. But I just want you to touch on, anomalies, things like that. And then
Yep.
towards the end there's always a few things I want to see. Go ahead.
Okay, yep, permit revenue still been, pretty stable. Maritime, we're seeing, a comeback with the aquarium, and people just getting out. In March, there were some breaks too. So
Their new iMac is open now too, running full steam, right?
is it,
Yes.
yeah, when
yes.
did they open?
They open, I think,
Last month.
end of February or mid-February. They opened up.
That's correct. Like right the first week of March, they were open.
March, right?
Okay. And Webster, we're seeing an uptick again. And this is somewhat related to the train station as well.
Do we have new numbers on the commuter?
So, yeah, you know what? Actually, I'll have to pull that out after.
Okay.
Yeah, we did get some reports from DOT that they sent, and I didn't have them out and ready. So I'm sorry.
So Chairman, we're looking at 21% is the latest number that's coming from DOT for riderships returning. So it's steadily increased. The good news, it's still a low number, but the good news is it has steadily increased since January.
Yeah, good.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, so no, I don't have to pull that out, but so yeah, and we're seeing that reflected when we go down to. I know the scale is off, but we're seeing kind of a little, uptick in the railroad station. It's not going down, except for East Norwalk is kind of level for the last couple of months.
Is there a big difference between the South Norwalk use and the East Norwalk use?
Yes.
Is it 20% across the board, or looks like East Norwalk is less than?
I think that's ridership on Metro North, Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's, you mean what Jim was talking? Yeah, I think that's overall,
That's
right?
overall ridership.
Overall, right.
Right.
So I don't know if they've got it broken down by who,
Mhm.
steps on at which platform.
But activity level in terms of cars parked, I think we're seeing more at the South Norwalk train station, and East Norwalk has been down and steady, hasn't seen any increase.
On the revenues that we've collected overall, we always report what percentage of the revenue comes in through credit cards, and we're a little over 77%. The pay by cell activity, the average transaction, let me get down to that if I could. On street, we're seeing people coming back. It's reflected there in the numbers. And corresponding ticket issuance, which you would expect. I'll come back to your report, Judd, for a sec. On the pay by cell, so the average transactions, $2.47 for this month. And that's down compared to last month, about 3%. The number of transactions year to date are down about 33% compared to last year. Revenues off about 54%. The but the percent of system activity, the transactions as a percent of system activity is about 17% overall, and revenue represents about 8%. We do have some penetration rates too. And so we're seeing overall penetration of about 35%. And that comes really an average of, depending on the location, we have a high of, East Norwalk, where everything, 100% of the transactions are through pay by cell, down to the Main Street lot, which is our lowest, which is at 18%. Haviland is at 47%, which is, I'm noting that only because that's, of all the forms of payment, credit card, cash, text to park, pay by cell, that is the highest percentage of transaction options that are being used. So that's nice to see.
It's hilarious. No, great.
Enforcement, let's see. Issuance year to date compared to last year's off over 7%. Revenue is up a little bit from collections. And I'll get back to Judd's report now. So the report that's in your packet is does not have these averages, and Judd had asked for that. So I can resend this out to Maritza so she can post it.
Okay.
Our number for March is the highest in years, right? 3.66.
Right.
So that means you're giving out a lot of tickets in comparison to parkers.
Right. There's been in terms of percentage of demands of transactions, yes, this has been the highest percent at 3.66. I mean, which is not surprising, just because everybody's been parking and our enforcement has been a little more relaxed. And so I think, people just aren't as compliant. So
in past months, you mean enforcement was more relaxed?
Right, last month, yeah. So we should see this in typical fashion. It should, spike, and then it should level back off again as compliance increases. So we'll follow that trend and see. But we still have, this kind of dovetails into the customer courtesy program, too. So for March, we still had 20 program dates. Total courtesy tickets that were issued was over 1,800. Judd, can I move from this slide, or do you want to look at it?
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to note, I read the agenda this morning and I saw that the ticket issuance looks quite high. So I hope it comes down.
Yeah, it will naturally as compliance increases.
Yeah.
So we had over 1,800 courtesy tickets issued. We added over $900 in meter time as part of the courtesy program. And there were 480 violations after the courtesy time expired, and the value of those was over $33,000. And you can see, year to date where that number is. If those courtesy tickets were citations, it would have been over $375,000 in tickets. And just as a comparison, all of last year, fiscal year 20, that dollar value of the courtesy tickets, if they were real citations, was $184,000. So you've doubled. You've doubled that, and we still have 3 months to go. We talked about pay by.
Stathi, do me a favor and just show me the library lot quickly.
Oh, library lot, you'll see nothing on it.
Right.
No.
There it is. Yeah.
Can you
So
see
it's
that?
gonna have to
Okay.
be, it's gonna have to be a discussion for us to figure out what to do with that lot. Okay,
Yes.
what else?
That's all, that's all we had. Unless anybody has a question.
Any questions on the floor? Start to give me my screen back, will you?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Before I go on to the next agenda item, I wanted to ask David if he wanted to do his presentation now so that he didn't have to spend the next hour with us waiting. Do you want to, Jim, do you want to, let's do Jim's presentation with David for the,
Rebranding logo.
I'm just looking at the thing right here for the rebranding and the logo. Can we do that right now?
Sure. David, are you set to be able to join? You're muted.
Yes, I am now here officially. I've been listening intently. I'm very, very interested in all the parking stuff. It fascinates me. So
All right,
thank
great. Then you can wait till the end and we'll just keep
It's
going.
okay. It's okay.
All right, so-
Yeah.
So to set David up, if someone could just give him the screen so that he could share his screen. So, based on the last meeting, we engaged Schneider to look at a rebranding of the customer-facing portion of the parking authority to Park Norwalk, right? More simplistic, and giving the customer, looking, what we wanted them to do, and I think speaking a little bit more to where the industry is right now. When I had a conversation with David and the group, we talked about sunsetting the meter, the Mr. Smiley, really getting a clean, crisp, fresh new look, so that when we reemerge from this, which we are seeing I think the numbers that we're showing and the indications that we're getting is that we're seeing slight reemergence of people using the product. And I think it's only going to continue to grow, and we need it to grow, but we wanted to invite them back into a really crisp, fresh, clean look. So Schneider has spent the last month putting together some concepts that they're going to go over with you today, and see where we want to move for further discussion. But David, the floor is yours.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And first, nice to meet those that I haven't met and to talk with you here tonight. And nice to see Staffy, Rocky, Eric. I hope you guys are all doing well. It's been a while, so it's good to be here with you guys tonight. First, just a quick note, and I'll jump into the slide. We salute the idea of Park Norwalk. The nomenclature itself. First of all, it just enunciates nicely. It's 3 syllables, which it's got that 3-syllable rule, which is 3 syllables or less. So that's great. But it also has a nice call to action to it. I mean, it is the call to action. So we think you guys are really on a good track with this. And I think also, as Jim mentioned, coinciding with this kind of coming out of this past year and a half, there's some good timing here to kind of like this would be a good opportunity to leverage this kind of a refresh. So we're going to take a look. We've got 3 options that we're going to show you. We typically do a range of 3. This is an exploratory, so it's really good for a discussion. We always make it a rule not to present anything. I think Eric can probably relate to this in his design work. We don't present anything that we wouldn't like to ultimately see the client produce. So we think everything that we're going to show you tonight has some good merit, and we'll talk through it. There is one that really rose to the surface for us, and we'll kind of talk about that as we get to it. The other thing, because it's an exploratory, typically we would go through, once you get to a logo, you really want to dig in, you want to look through a lot of different variations, black and white, knockout, all kinds of use. But here we felt it was really important, which is why we needed the month to take a look at applications, because the way that the logo is actually used in application, whether it's wayfaring signs or your, the clothing that the parking ambassadors wear and stuff like that, it's really key that it works well. So we'll take a look at that in context of these logos. So with that, it sounded like a good plan. I'm just going to jump in. I can go through this. Again, there's 3 options with applications, and then we can come back, we can come back and flip through these. It's not that long of a deck.
Sounds great. Thank you. Yeah, let's see them.
Okay, so you obviously know where we've come from with the Norwalk Parking Authority logo as it lives now, and that logo has been around for a long, long time. We did some updates on it recently. We brought a little bit of that into this first option that we're sharing with you. We brought in a little bit of that wave reference that we've had now, and that's currently in the wayfaring signs. So Park Norwalk, emphasis on park, and obviously the P that's so important in our application. And as I said, I think the way that this really helps us to identify what's happening here is to see it, actually apply it in some of the applications that you guys currently have out there in the market. So this, I would say, is kind of an evolution of where we've been. It just takes what we've got and refreshes it, brings it into a new space. Obviously, the biggest new change here is the nomenclature, Park Norwalk, which, as I said in the beginning, we really salute. We think that's a great idea. The next option actually takes, the city of Norwalk, between the time that we started with the parking authorities some years ago, went through a rebranding. And so this option actually kind of aligns itself with that rebranding. I'm sure if you guys are familiar with the city's branding, there's some wave, this little kind of decoration here that also is kind of the wave reference. This kind of plays off of that, takes part in that. And again, park is prominent. And then an application, which again, I think is really important. And again, these all work. We wouldn't want to produce anything here that couldn't play out and work harder than what we currently have in the marketplace. And then last but not least, this logo, which has really resonated for us. Again, emphasizing park, emphasizing Norwalk. This is actually picking up the colors of the city of Norwalk's current branding. And the application on this is really kind of fascinating because it gives you an opportunity to, both align with some of the applications that we have out there. For wayfaring, it's a great mark. It's very unique, but also very identifiable as parking. And it also gives you kind of that wayfaring point. And, as I mentioned in colors, and we just did this for you to see that, if you guys are familiar with the city of Norwalk's current branding applications, this really plays that out very nicely. These are all colors that identify directly with that current branding, but it's uniquely park. It's uniquely parking. So stands apart from that. Doesn't get into the kind of drawings, but stays very close to it in terms of a brand alignment. So that's our range. And, I open it up, Jim, to the floor.
Great. I love it. I mean, I think it's really cool. For me, it would probably be the middle one, that middle one. The thing that gets me about the middle one is the wave and the word park. My mind immediately goes to the parks in Norwalk, like Cove and, all the parks. Like, doesn't really scream park to me. The first one is pretty nice. I like orange. Orange tends to be one of my favorites anyway. So I'm
oh my God, Mike, I said the same thing. Orange is my signature color.
Yeah. But of course, I think the third one is leading the way for me. I don't know. What do you guys think?
But David, on the third one, and maybe Jim, you could help with this too. Do you envision being able to use just the thought bubble thing alone to identify parking assets, or like would it, because could we use that independent of the words?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look over on the right-hand side, that upper right-hand corner, I hope you can see it. I hope
yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Eric. We wanted to make sure that P could stand alone as a mark. And so that's how it works in the wayfaring sign there. The other thing which you can't really see in that signage that's down there in that we mocked up in the parking lot is that we could really see this as if you can imagine a map of Norwalk, right? And everywhere that there's a parking lot, you simply see this P pointing to that dot. This is almost like one of those like Google, you're here kind of marks. And so it's that's what that map is. That's supposed to be a map that you can't really see because we're pulled so far back, but that's the idea. Absolutely.
So that's a good point. If you like right now, if you look at Google Maps, I don't know where the parking symbol comes from that's on the maps when you just pull it up, but can this go so far as being, can this is a separate question, but can parking assets in Norwalk be represented by a symbol like this on Google?
What Google does, Google will do. What we do, we can do.
Okay. All right. So no. I think, Mike, I do wrestle a little bit, and maybe it's just because it's new, with Park Norwalk, just trying to make things as clear as possible. And it might take people a little bit of thought to realize that Park Norwalk means automobiles. And again, it could be just because this is, just new. But I like it also. I like that it's not on the nose, and I like the third one because it does give you far more flexibility in how to use it all.
Yeah.
And the colors are good.
Yeah, I think the city of Norwalk would be very happy to see this. It does work very well and with that palette.
David, could you just jump back to the other screen for a second?
Yep.
That one. We're there. So one of the things that I just wanted to talk to the group is where we spent a lot of the conversation was really creating a unique identifier that could stand out on its own. So the P just being in there, and I really love what they able to come with it, kind of like a unique little bubble that's there, right? There's little symbolism when you're looking at the P is actually pointing to Norwalk, so I think we reinforce a little bit of our own brand. But we are also looked at, what do you do with this beyond just the P and beyond just the name that's there? And so they did a really great job of mocking up what could be a shirt used by the parking officials, right? And loved this shirt because it didn't look like it was an officer. It didn't look like it was a parking person. Really, it set it up like as this was almost an ambassador to the city who's there. They're like a parking ambassador that's going to be there. We just thought it was really approachable. There was a cleanness of it that sent a message like this was new. And then if you can go to the other sign, we have the 3-in-1. Right. So the interesting thing about the center of this one is, if you have not seen yet, Jessica is working on a new Norwalk brand that has a number multi-colors in it, and each of those colors, the Pantone colors, are representative in the various P's. So what I really liked about this one is that it had a relationship to Norwalk. But it wasn't just everything was branded the same. It was what David talked about before, was very complementary to what the city is doing, but yet strong enough to stand on its own and be its own brand. I think this was one of the ones that we really liked, and I hope you do too. I hope we're on market, because I think this spoke to really just a clean, crisp, new thing that we could come up with, and we could start to introduce these things in a variety of different elements. But the P, hope standing on its own, the color tone would actually be, I think, a little bit of an identifier, because it's not going to be the typical red, or it's not going to be the typical green that you see in signs, so that you should be able to better identify where our assets are. So
Nice.
I have a couple of comments. Personally, I think it's great. I like it. But I know already what it's about. A couple of years ago, driving through Wall Street area, I think we have signs now that are just a P, maybe a blue P or a blue sign with a white P in it. And I asked my wife, Maria, what that meant to her. And she works in market research for Pitney Bowes, so she's pretty sharp. She said, I don't know. What is that? So I think before we make a decision on this, you should, Dave, I think you should do a focus group with people who have no idea what this means. Don't tell them this is about parking signage. Just ask them what it means, because again, I love the design. It's beautiful. I get it. Everybody here gets it. But I just think you need to run it by 100 people walking down the street. Because I do think it's possible some people may view this as public parks or something like that.
Gotcha.
Regardless of what we do, Jim's comment about the shirts, I think are great. You know, that the color layout there, that's wonderful, because it sure doesn't look like a authoritative shirt. It looks like a very friendly shirt, and the people wearing it are friendly. So those are my thoughts.
Good point. No, we salute both qualified and quantified research always.
Well, I think, first of all, excellent job, David. Thank you so much. And I know that although Jim's been sort of spearheading the change of name and branding, I think it's fair to say that you get the gold star on this one, because it's great. It's good stuff.
But yeah,
What I'd like to do, what I'd like to do is, do we have a hard copy of this, or is this in our emails in some way?
I'd be happy to send this deck to the authority. Absolutely. Yeah, we can.
Right.
Yeah, I'll forward it over to Jim, and then I've got Mike. I've got your email. I can send it to you. You guys can deploy it as needed.
Perfect.
And we will. We're going to have our own conversations during the next couple of weeks, as we always do. And
absolutely. No, this is for your review.
Yeah.
Appreciate the consideration. Yeah, I think it's a great effort, and as said, from our point of view, we saluted. I think there's a friendliness about it on all three of these versions, but there's a more friendly nature to the nomenclature itself. And really, I think you've got two things going here. One is the nomenclature, and one is the design. So they both need to work together. One's the name, one's the design, and they're both proposing a kind of a real refresh for you guys. So we're here to help, and we're here to help facilitate. So I'll send this over, review, and happy to engage after you guys have had some time to really dig into it.
excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay, great, guys. I've got some parking tickets now. I'm gonna head out. I wish you guys the best. Great to see some of you. Great to meet the guys I haven't met, and great to see the folks that I haven't seen in so long. You guys stay safe, be well out there. And Jim, I'll talk to you as we go along here.
All right, David, wonderful job again. Thanks very much.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, David.
Wow, that's cool. I think that's very exciting. And I think that, just putting a check mark next to that one. I also think that, along with our idea of what we've been working on with the parking authority moving forward, the rebranding is very timely for us. I think it's a great time for us to be doing something like this. So do me a favor, guys, when you see it in your email, print it out, put it on the refrigerator, walk by it 10 or 12 times. Let's make a few calls and see where we stand with it and how we feel with it, and then get our feedback back to Jim. Okay. Excellent. Back up on topic. Engineering and project report. Is Vanessa there? Are you there, Vanessa? We're gonna give her a second.
I am here.
Oh, she's
yes.
there. Yay!
It's just that my mouse sometimes do not work. I'll turn on my video and I'm ready.
I don't like hearing that from our engineer.
So
Mouse trouble.
the only thing that I have to report is that yesterday we had the bid opening for the TMP 2021-2. That is the caulking for the South Norwalk train station. We received 4 bidders. The bid results were very competitive, but they were kind of on two extremes. So with that, we were planning to put on the agenda for tonight's approval, but we would like to take an extra look on the lower bidder, make sure that he really understood the scope of the work. So I would like to ask you guys just to be patient, and I'm going to present that item again in your May meeting. We gave the packages all to Desmond, so Desmond will review. They're going to meet probably on site one more time. We just want to make sure that his number really reflects the work that we are proposing. So with that, we should have a final number, including all the alternates that we're going to do for the next meeting for your approval, and then runs through DPW and Common Council. And the other item, sorry.
So say this again, and this is for the ceiling and tell me what it's for again?
It is for the South Norwalk train station garage. So the main work there is that we want to caulk all the vertical joints in that garage. That is
it re-caulking or is it?
No, that structure actually, Mike, when was built, didn't require that. But now they're realizing that it is, we should do it because we're having some issues with some leaking in the building and particularly in some of those offices. Also, that is the base bit, right? And also what we are adding as alternates, we want to paint some of the metal structures outside. We want to clean some of the windows in the lobby. We need to add a kind of a birding nesting that will avoid the pigeons to stay on top of the structure that face the platform on the New York bound side. That was a DOT request. So all those are alternates. So that's what I need more time just to make sure that the contractor that is the upper and low bidder really knows what the scope is. So you're going to see that next month.
I can see that. I mean, I see everything there except the clean. I mean, the window cleaning is Rocky and Stothy, right? That's a maintenance thing. That's not a.
We make as a part of the capital. Because also, yeah, they're going to already be there. They have to have some scaffolding and some already tools. So we just added to the project as a capital improvement as well.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
Okay.
We took the opportunity to add that service. And with the Webster lot, we haven't put that out to bid. We're just got the wage rates back yesterday. So we should be finalizing the bid package and we're hoping to probably advertise next week. So
Webster lot is the water abatement repair, right?
Yes, that's correct. Is the water quality improvement for that site.
The quality. Okay.
So that's all that I have to report.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So new business we want to discuss. And this is where I saw that little typo. It says discuss and vote 15-meter parking, but I think it's 15-minute parking space redesign. So the reason why this is on the agenda is because there has been a noticeable amount of people that have mistaken our 15-minute parking spots for regular parking spots and vice versa, and have received a violation or have gotten, something's gone wrong because they've put their car all day or, whatever the case may be. But right now, it's just a small 15-minute parking spot. And the proposal, and I think I'm going to let Jim talk a little bit about this, or Jim or Rocky, but what we want to do is we want to paint the street in the space that is the 15 minutes. And that way it is unmistakably marked so that you know what you're doing. When you want to pull in, you can only be there 15 minutes, then you got to go and it's clear. So do you guys want to speak to that a little bit?
Before you do, can I ask a question?
Who's that? Eric, yes.
What role do the meters play in this 15-minute program?
The meters.
I mean,
it's free.
when you say people mistakenly park there, that means they're using the meter, right?
Right. So one of the complaints we got was that somebody put in, $2 or $3 worth of money and expected to be there for a couple hours, but didn't realize that we're only in a 15-minute spot. So 20
Yeah.
minutes later, they got a ticket, right?
So I guess it's the engineering department just put those traffic barriers up on North Main, and somebody removed the meters that those new spaces are now for restaurant use or pedestrian use. Why don't we just remove the meters?
So Eric, I think one of the challenges that we also saw, and sorry, Mark, is that, a number of the tickets came from like areas where there's a pay station, right? So not necessarily the individual parking meter, that they're paying the pay station for a longer period of time than the 15 minutes it's there.
So it's not just Washington Street.
No.
No, it's not. No, it's 15 minutes everywhere.
Well, my only concern about painting is it's from the minute you allow traffic, it's a degradation of appearance just from traffic. It's unavoidable. So do we run the risk of it not looking fresh and clean and intentional? I don't know.
I think Rocky could speak to that because he has done it in other cities in the past, and he has I think we talked about having a sample done. Rocky, you have something.
Eric, these are paintings that we put on the ground. They dry up quick, so we block the spaces off. So the chance of being, those paint being smudged or destroyed is, we gotta wait until the end until they dry up. So it would be, dry before, any customer comes on them.
Is there a sample? Is there a sample anywhere, Rocky, of what we would put down on that?
Yeah, we do have some, even at the South Norwalk overflow lot, we do have permit only sign on the ground. It doesn't say 15 minutes, but these signs are, on those spaces, permit only, painted on the ground. That is,
Have you ever done actual 15-minute meters and maybe the meter heads themselves are painted green or blue or something? And in a place like Wall Street where we have pay stations at the 15-minute spots, would we consider putting actual old style meters just in those spots? So it's very obvious that that's a 15-minute spot or a 30-minute spot or whatever we decide.
No, I don't have any experience on that. I'm Jim's thought, unless you have some experience.
So listen, in full disclosure, I'd have some concerns about painting the street. I think even if we went that direction, we would need to look into the traffic authority because we're painting the city infrastructure. Right. I share the concern where, when you paint and it starts to wear away, then are we constantly in an issue of maintenance and does it look good, right? Wintertime, when we're snow covered streets, that's going to be yet another indication, of I didn't see it or it's not there. The meters in general, quite honestly, I would like us to look at more pay stations and less individual meters for a couple of reasons. One, we know that the individual meters that we have are running near end of life, and that we would need to make an investment in them for their telecommunications to still function next year. More importantly, they just add a lot of additional clutter to our public right of way that is pretty minimal, right? We don't have really large sidewalks, and I think we saw that with the dining and restaurants where it was taken away, asking can they have the meters taken away because it's just there. And I think we should try to clean up our streets a little bit, and I think a pay station would do that. Also, pay stations would aid in the enforcement. They're integrated more with the handhelds, so that they're easier to identify those individuals who have not paid for parking versus those who have. And the other thing is, if a meter is broken, then what do, right? But if a pay station is broken, there's typically other pay stations on the street, so there's multiple options that a consumer would have to pay for parking.
Jim, I I mean, I agree with all that, but I think, I guess what I was hoping to hear from you was your feather flag sales pitch. Because that's
Okay,
another
so-
great, that's another great idea that we threw around in the beginning, but we gotta make these 15-minute spots somehow stick out a little bit to kill this confusion. So what are we gonna do?
And that's where I was gonna go. I think that, you know, whether we do a feather flag, whether we do, you know, some other type of vertical thing that's, you know, that's there, like, I think that, you know, the reason I like the feather flags is because if we put them out there and it doesn't work, we just go. You see down the street where your instant spots are, you know them when they're available, right? Once we paint the street, if we turn around and say that there's a different usage, you know, then we have to power wash it off to get it clean. I do think that maybe we should, you know, Jessica, are you on board? The thoughts that we had with the feather flags, we didn't really see an opposition coming from the mayor's office, correct?
What are feather flags?
Our flutter flags, they're just, you know, the ones that, the larger ones that you'll typically see like a barber shop or something, but we would have it where it's just a flag that is, you know, that's roughly 18 inches wide, that just will say, you know, curbside pickup, or, you know, whatever.
15 minute parking.
Right?
Okay.
So I'm don't want to play devil's advocate on this one, but I can't help but play devil's advocate on this one because it's just where I got to be on this particular topic. But we've just spent a lot of time going around the urban core removing flutter flags because they've been sort of overtaking particular corners and they've been associated to certain businesses, and we've gotten a ton of complaints on them. So I hear what Jim is saying on the paint when it comes to maintenance, and also if it snows, you can't see it and all that kind of stuff, right? I get that part. But then I've also been, you know, with the team on the receiving end of, I parked in a 15-minute spot. I put $5 in, I put $3 in, and I got a ticket I didn't know. I've also been in the spot with the team where, you know, someone parks in another spot adjacent to, you know, in front of or behind a 15-minute spot, and they walk into a store and get a ticket and they didn't realize, right? They saw the sign, but they read the sign wrong. But I do really feel like we need to be extremely thoughtful about the flutter flags, because the flutter flags, to a certain extent, in one instance, I think they were used to indicate pickup and drop off for delivery or for restaurants. But when we look at the 15-minute spots that we have throughout the urban core, they are associated to it could be the surgical store that we were just talking about. It could be Fulham's curtains and window coverings. It could be the liquor store. It could be all these other places, right? So I'm kind of picturing all the places that we have the 15-minute parking spots along Wall Street in particular, and just thinking of what that would look like. And then also from an enforcement standpoint, I think it might be difficult to say to the stores, you guys can't put flutter flags out on the public right of way, and then we as the parking authority are doing that, right? So I feel, I don't know, I'm sorry I have to play devil's advocate on this one, but I'm a little worried about the number of flags that would be out there, and just sort of thinking about trying to clean up the clutter. But I also hear the challenges with the paint. So I'm not very helpful in this particular conversation because I haven't found the creative silver bullet that we need. But I'm not, you know, just from a personal standpoint, and I think from a city standpoint and from an enforcement standpoint for building and code and also zoning, I know we've worked really hard to try to get those off the street. So I'll leave it at that.
So
well, then clearly we got to keep thinking about this. I mean, quite frankly, my head just went back to Judd's idea of painting the meters a different color and then doing something else with the multimeter spaces. But
yeah, and also
something like that, we're going to have to think of something. I also think that
Mike, there is another option too, is instead of I mean, I agree. It's easy to support or find issues with either solution because there's no perfect one. And the flutter flags look great, I think, but who knows, they could be vandalized, stolen, Sign litter. And the painting, if it's smaller, it can probably work because the tires are going to kind of it'll go over the car and not necessarily on the painting, kind of like a handicap logo on a sign. But maybe the curbs is where you can do it. So where, usually when you have a
Can't paint the
non-painted,
curbs.
well, I don't know. If we're talking about different color of the meter, that's maybe an option too. I don't know if there's a best one. It's got whatever works for you guys, but that's an option as well.
Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask everybody to dig deep and try to think of their own ideas. And in the interim, ask Rocky to ask his constables to go easy on the 15-minute spots in terms of enforcement, because clearly there's some confusion out there, and you got to ask your guys to talk.
How big of a problem is it, Mike?
Well, it's been like 3 months that a couple have come up each month.
Is that
and
enough?
asked about it. So
is that enough
I don't
to
know.
go through all this?
I don't know. Maybe
Can I
not.
throw another thing out there? Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about being devil's advocate, and listen, I totally agree with Jessica. I'm gonna play both sides but like, I do think feather flags might work with, in a pickup drop off in issues where we're trying to short-term thing. But when if we were to look at long-term, I think that's a different animal, right? So I would then challenge, our 15-minute spots, the thing that we should be doing, right? Should they just not be available parking spaces, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that. I mean, I think I'd rather step back from it. And now that we're a year and whatever months into this situation, think of it that way. Is that still the right and best thing to do?
You mean eliminate them?
Yeah, because I find, especially on Washington Street, that those 15-minute spaces really don't mean anything, because people still, for some reason, they choose to stop at those 2 crosswalks, which is the narrowest part of the street, to get out and go pick up their food.
But I gotta say, like in Wall Street with the pay stations, I go to Bank of America over there. I go to the surgical store to get stuff, for my, excuse me. Anyway, I don't want to walk up the street to a pay station. I hate walking up, and I'll risk getting a ticket. So if there, and this is my thing, if there was a 15-minute spot that I could pull into and drop a quarter in the meter, maybe I'm just too much of an analog guy still. I don't use the parking app on my phone. My wife does, so usually we drive her car. But when we started the 15-minute parking thing, I didn't think it was a good idea, but I see the value in it now, especially, for some of these smaller businesses. I don't know if you remember the liquor store on Wall Street when we first started charging. I mean, people who go to a liquor store, they're not going to go in there for 30 minutes. So, but, and I guess I wouldn't be opposed to removing the 15-minute spots if there were meter heads, because then every spot is a 15-minute spot, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway.
I'd like this. I don't think that we need to be going through all this for just a couple of people. And, and it's just like any other, regulation. We're all expected to understand what we're doing. And, and if we make a mistake, we make a mistake. And then maybe we're more lenient on the forgiveness of a ticket like that. I don't know, but, it just, I mean, we spent time in previous meetings talking about less clutter on the streets, but now we're adding clutter. And, for something that, that hopefully is not going to be necessary for, for the foreseeable future, for much longer than the foreseeable future, and none of it'll matter. I would highly not recommend painting the curbs, especially if they're granite, because you'll never get the paint off of that. And and I don't think, regardless of the snow cover in the fall, I don't think that that painting the asphalt is the right thing either. There's still shamrocks painted on North Main from, I think it's 2 or 3 St. Patrick's days ago. And, it's just like that stuff just gets worse and worse as it wears. I don't know.
I think Ollie keeps going out there and going over them again. All right, so listen, let's
lead to O'Neill's.
let's leave it at this. Let's leave it at this, right? We'll take a closer look. Let's look at where all the 15-minute spots are, and let's look at where all the complaints are, and we'll take a look.
Yeah, maybe there's some.
Bring it up again next month, if we can find some real something to worry about.
Well, we can try to pull some ticket data too, if you want. And
okay,
see,
yeah.
Like how
yes,
big,
please.
Like to Eric's point, how big of an issue this really
How big
is.
of an issue
the
is.
percentage of
All right.
tickets.
Yeah, okay.
Excellent. Jim, would you regale us with your phone charging stations report?
Sure. So I did send an email to everyone just so that you had, so I thought it might have been easier to view versus on screen, but happy to pull it up if you'd like. This is just for the discussion, in potential voting on phone charging stations. So just to reiterate to everyone, when I made my first tour of the train stations with Rocky, one of the things that I noticed is that, we are absent of a place for someone to charge their cell phone, right? And, that's where that's a service that you have come to expect in most of the public facilities, right? They're in airports, and, again, I think it's about reemerging from the pandemic, being better than what we were before and offering more services, to people than we had before. And I think a phone charging station is an amenity that you come to expect. And as a traveler, if you want to, you're going to jump on the train, you want to just be able to charge it for a little while there. There are a couple of options that I put in front of you. One of them that had the Virgin logo on it, that was probably a little bit more of my personal favorite. It was about $3,500. And again, this is the retail. We haven't asked them. We haven't bid anything yet. This was just, obviously, I don't know that our bid is going to get that much. We're really just talking probably a few stations, 4 probably that we're looking at, ish. But there's also another one that has a little bit more of the table, right? Truthfully, the table was interesting as it has an appearance, but I just worried that someone's going to go and they're going to get like a buttery, lobster roll somewhere, and then they're going to eat it, and then the butter is going to be all over on the table, right? And the other one the other one I think offered a little bit more of a branding opportunity for us. And I think if we're in Sono, we can brand Sono stuff down there. If we're East Norwalk, we can brand East Norwalk stuff and just give reasons for people to explore the city outside the train station, or just maybe highlight some of the things that are going on there. But I do think it's a much needed service that we're not providing to people today. And, I think we should give it a more consideration.
Yeah, and do we have some sample? We do have some samples in our email about that. So
yeah. So Garrett, could you pull it up? Did you right there?
Yep. I'm just gonna share the screen.
I definitely don't like the table idea, because I could definitely see those, somebody leaving their sticky Krispy Kreme donut
I didn't either.
on
I just
there,
wanted to give you
or sitting on it or something. I don't.
Yep.
think that's-
So this was not a sitter. You kind of see the different aspects that we have. The different view. It's kind of narrow. It doesn't take up a lot of real estate. Has that little counter that you're going to leave your phone there, but you're not going to forget it, right? You have to be active around it. And then we have that ability just to engage Schneider more into coming up with like a Norwalk and a little bit more of our brand, right? That's
Yeah, I'll show you the other one too.
yeah.
This
see, that
was the other one,
table.
just for reference.
Yeah, didn't really love it, right? But I saw a lot of I just wanted to offer different choices, but and if you don't like either of them, I can go back with with many different choices, right? But real estate is pretty tight in the train stations, particularly when they're going to be busy again, right? So I didn't want something that took up a lot of room, but I also liked the vertical one a little bit more because you could see it from a different place, right? So
Yeah, I mean, in my eyes, I envision, first of all, nobody's going to let go of their phone in the train station. So they're going to stand there.
Yeah.
They're only going to go 22 inches away from their phone with the little cord. And I mean, it can even be a wall mounted thing, but it's something that that doesn't really lend itself to do anything else with. There's nothing else you can do with it.
Yeah.
And now, of course, people are not going to want to bunch all together and stand together. So it should be something where people can at least use both sides of, like this unit, or something, where they can have their, 5 or 6 feet apart from each other or something while their phone's charging. So these kids these days are charging their phone for 6 minutes, and that's enough for them. And then they do their next, task with it. It's not like you're there for that long. But I think simple, clean, and non-obtrusive is the best way to go, and you're right. I think we need at least one on each side of the tracks in 2 stations, which is 4 of them.
Yeah.
And if we can find one that has some branding ability to it, the better for us, Absolutely.
Hey, Jim, does it have to be something, that's standalone like this? Like, as I think of like the South Norwalk train station on the New Haven side, the railing in there has all these little sculptures.
Toppers.
Yeah, all these things on it. Could it be that there's simply like a USB plug underneath each of those that somebody could sit in the chair that's right in front of it and just plug in while they sit there? Does it have to be? I mean, it can I guess can it be integrated into railings or furniture or things that we have to have anyway, so that we're not adding stuff to the spaces?
So
oh, okay, go ahead.
So my only concern would be like, it becomes a little bit more away about how we also use public transportation, right? Particularly buses, right? They're there, but you really have to know how to use it. It's not intuitive, right? And if we just added it there, how is someone going to know that that's the charging station, right? Where you're not going, if you're not someone who's going to go and sit down, do you even know it's there? If the other thing about the sitting down portion is, if everyone's just sitting because the train is delayed, right? Then, and you need to be the person that charged. Like, the reason I like a charging station is because the only thing you're going to do at the charging station is charge, right? If they're in something where we're already integrated into the station, are you going to be doing that other task and then competing with the charging?
Yeah. And quite frankly, Eric, I don't want you to be comfortable while you're charging your phone.
Yeah,
I don't want to give you a chair. I don't want to give you a corner to hide in. I don't want to give you, I want you to have to stand there, do what you have to do, and then go.
Or sit on the floor.
That's all good.
Or sit on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all good. I just, the stations aren't that big.
Yeah.
And, I just was, I don't know, just trying to think about how to avoid having to add more stuff to it.
So we could look and see if there's a wall mounted version. Eric, I think you mentioned that before. So we'll take that as a takeaway, and it can remain as an item on the agenda if you're comfortable with us going down this path. And we'll keep this in the running as it's one. We'll get rid of the other one, but we'll come back with a couple of different options for next month and see if we're going in the right direction. But we'll specifically look and see if we can't find a wall-mounted one. Wall-mounted ones might even be easier for us or cheaper to install, as power would be very readily available in that wall anyway.
Yeah.
So we have a takeaway.
I definitely think we should do it, some version of it.
Yeah.
It's good. I think it's a good thing to do.
Okay. I agree. All right. Thank you both. Thank you all. A quick note, Rocky, there is, I know that KB and his team covered up the outlets that were in the New Haven bound side of the South Norwalk train station. But there is one they haven't covered up, and I think it's the most important one. It is in the corner underneath the firebox, the electronic firebox. And I think that needs to be covered up. It's just not safe that people, because Eric and Eric, this is part of the reason, the impetus that brought this whole thing was that, you know, the other day there was somebody there blow drying their hair.
Oh, wow.
And you just can't in a public space like that in the corner next to the firebox where it needs to be accessible. And it just was wrong.
Yeah.
So can you ask KB to please check that for me?
Sure, I'll do that, Captain.
Okay, thanks. I'm gonna go. I don't know if this is a discussion or not. It's on the agenda from last month, but we were talking about the parking rates for Liberty Square, Wall Street, and Washington areas. The impetus of this for me was to try to get Washington down to $1, but not lose our shirt, and bring Wall Street and Liberty Square from 50 cents to $1, because when we implemented both of those from zero, it was under an experimental plan and a what's the word I'm looking for? A starting plan. For instance, you know, we told everybody, all right, we're going to start real low. We're just going to get everybody used to doing it. We're not going to give out tickets yet. We're going to, you know, we went through the whole process. And now a year, almost 2 years later, for these places, we're at a place where we have to decide what those rates should be, whether or not they should be commensurate with the rest of the city, or if we should leave them alone. And so I guess it is a topic. There you go. Open that topic up to anybody that wants to give their advice. Judd, what do you think?
I think you leave them exactly as they are. I think, you know, you're talking about street parking only. You're not talking about the lots, right?
No, I'm talking about the whole ball of wax. I mean, Liberty Square is a lot.
Okay. I guess whatever the street rates are, what is important to me and what I've learned and read, you know, from Donald Shoup, Jeff Speck, and including studies that we've paid for, is that the most desirable parking has to have the highest rate. And I think we've got that balance now where the curb parking in Washington, South Norwalk is the most desirable in the city. It's higher than the surrounding lots. Wall Street is up and coming. I think we want to keep that price low right now. I think if we raise that to $1 an hour, the merchants down there would, you know, we'd never hear the end of it. So
right, okay.
I think we've implemented what I understand to be best practices from all the parking experts around the country. So
I'd agree, Judd. I also think that we don't have the demand there yet from Wall Street to solidify a harder rate. I think the city, you know, is looking to make an investment in Wall Street, and I think, you know, when we do and it looks better and we start to see a change, then we should investigate it again. But I think the same goes for Liberty Square. I think that there could be a better investment that's there. You know, personally. And I do like the fluctuation of rates that happen to be where you see demand more.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I brought this up many times over the years, but like North Water Street, north of the aquarium, I would think that those rates should be dropped to $1 an hour or 50 cents an hour because they're very underutilized. I thought when the mall opened, maybe people would park there because it's cheaper than the mall, but I'm not seeing that. So, you know, that's one adjustment. If I were the king, I would make, but it's also okay the way it is. But yeah, drive by, you know, you and I live down here and I come home that way at night and there's no one parked there.
I haven't seen anybody even during the day, Judd.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
it's quiet.
So to
It's
me,
quiet.
we should drop that down, drop it to $1, see if it starts getting some usage. I'd always rather park on the street than in a garage every time. So maybe I'll park there and walk home.
Okay. Will you park there and walk home? That's
Yeah,
pretty
but it's
far.
cheap parking.
All right. Anybody else? Tom, you actually work down there. You feel,
Yeah,
feel
there is no demand right now. I would
No.
leave it alone for the time being.
okay, good, good. All right. Jim, once again, looking for another gold star. You have a snow emergency signage presentation for us? You want to share your
Sure.
screen?
So Eric, Garrett Wild Talk, could you throw up the visual for, so this is, again, to talk about where we were before when, when I was driving around in the, in my early days, like 6 weeks later is so much later. One of the things that really troubled me is that our snow emergency signs, viewed from the street is so predominant where you just see a red, no parking, right? And then it's, for snow emergency. But again, that snow emergency is probably called a couple of times a year, if we're lucky, right? So for 360, 2 days out of the year, everyone just sees this really no parking and a negative message, right? So I was just wondering if it is not better suited where we do a versatile sign that's just it can either be blank, we could throw it up for no parking for snow emergencies and just, and have it illuminate at the time. If there is, an event going on, like park here for the Oyster Festival for $42 or something, that, you can do that. This sign is available in 24. So it's 24 by 24, 24 by 36, 24 by 48, 24 by 66, right? I would not say that we should do that. I think, really just like a 24 by 24 is probably fine. You could actually, you could do up to 8 messages. I don't think we should. I think anything good is just done in 1, 2, 1, 2, but we could do snow emergency, no parking overnight, snow emergency, no parking overnight, right? And then that would just illuminate for the time that we put it in, and other times it goes blank, right? And it's just, it would be a little bit more of an expense than where we are right now, but we'd have to weigh if there's other messages that would be beneficial for the city to use out of this. I just don't know that what I want to do, and what was about the precipice about Park Norwalk, was creating a welcoming environment for people to park. And I think if the biggest thing that you're going to see is red, no parking, it doesn't send that message to me.
Can it say 15-minute parking?
I was gonna say, why don't you use it for your 15-minute spots? Nice. Now,
The
is this a
15
permanent,
doesn't never pay for themselves.
Jim, is this a permanent installation somewhere that is then somehow remotely activated with our message? Or, I mean, how does this work? It is. Okay.
So there's a couple of different ways. It depends on how we communicate. I think, I'm not sure if either Staffy or Rocky have ever used something for, but if we had a connection back to a central place, then they could do it there. Most of the times these are available via Bluetooth, right? So you would pull up to the sign, and then you would use an app, maybe your iPad, or you download the message to your phone. And then you just upload it to the device when you're in the area, and it can be done a number of different ways. I think that's probably the most cost efficient one.
Are there any examples in other towns, or is there anything we can see live can I see one of these live? Where are they? Where else are these being used?
So in Stamford, you see a version of them up on the mast arm that in this instance, we can change the message to anything you want. But they have them we have a blank out sign that's on predominantly most of the signals. I think we have some here too that say no turn on red, when it's
Oh,
a red light, yield to pegs, when
gotcha.
it's a yield, right? If you've been in downtown New Haven, in the Broadway section, we put one up there to alert drivers to events that were going on the green when we had road closures that were up ahead. But so it's predominantly out and only really used when you want to deliver a message.
But I'm still confused. So the whole impetus of this is because we have these snow emergency signs out there. I'm going to say all over the place, but we have a bunch of these, right?
Yep.
Snow emergency signs, and they're eyesores, and we don't need them all. And you just propose that we replace them all with neon ones.
Well, no, I wouldn't say
understand.
that we would replace them all. I think that I think we have so many, right? I think we're very oversigned, right? But
Right.
but I think also when you look at, there's a different, visual element when you're looking at a static sign versus when you're looking at, an illuminated sign. And I think, what we could, like what we did in New Haven is we put a little blue light, right? So there was also a blue light. So that when the blue light flashed, it brought your eyes to look at that, right? And it's not like it's this beacon that's flashing all over the place. It's just low, but it's enough to catch your eye. It's gonna be flashing blue light. That would be on, and it would be highlighting you to look at this, right?
Yeah, I understand it, and I get it. I just feel like it's
Jim, like, let's take,
feels like it's not a parking issue.
let's
Feels
take
like it's a-
North. I'm sorry, Mike.
Feels like it's a traffic issue. Is this something the traffic commission would? Because we don't control the snow signs, do we?
Yes, you do, because you're plowing. It's so that you can plow. It's so that we can plow the lot, right? So.
Oh, in the lots. Yeah,
these are in
Webster,
the
Havel,
lots.
and in the lots. Okay.
Jim,
Yeah.
these aren't going to be, you're not talking about putting these on the street.
No.
These are just
in the
like the
lots.
webs. I noticed like truthfully, when I was on MLK, like I drove down and my first inclination when I was going on there was, what is going on here? How come I can't park in the lot, right? When that was my first visit to the city, right? And that's really, that was like, then I pulled in there and I'm like, oh, there are no parking signs. Wow, there's a shit ton of them, right? Sorry. And so that was really just what drove it. It's just like,
I get it.
Me being unfamiliar with Norwalk and driving around, what I saw from MLK is that I couldn't park in that lot, right? And then when I drove with Rocky, it again was reiterated when we looked at the Water Street lot, that there was a ton of them,
I understand.
in there, and we're really putting all of those signs up to get us for a message that we are only delivering to people maybe 3 days a year.
So
then do me, wait a second, Judd. So do me a favor. Could you do this for me, Jim?
Yep.
Or Garrett, I guess. Could
Yeah.
you show us maybe the next meeting or between now and then through email, show us an image of the map, of the chart of, let's pick Webster Lot, for example, and show me where all of the all the snow emergency signs are now.
Okay.
And then show me where you want to put these.
All right, we'll do.
So that we can see, right? So we can visually see the problem and the solution.
All right, perfect.
And see, because I love the idea. I think it just needs to be defined a little tighter.
And to Jim's point too, I mean, you don't need as many, and these do require power. So we have power at the pay stations.
Yeah.
That could be a likely location.
Yep.
All right. So, I think that would clear up a lot of the conversation. Eric?
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, these locations in New Haven, could you just send like a street address that we could just pull up on Google and?
Sure. We'll get that, and we'll make sure that that's available for us to have as well. Yep.
Yeah. Then we
Awesome.
could go there.
Okay.
I love it. Thank you very much.
All right.
While we're at it,
Yeah.
I agree with Jim. There's way too many signs everywhere, and if we are only talking about the parking lots for that, that's great. But do we need one on every lamppost and every signpost along Washington Street and as well? I mean,
I think the whole signage topic, though, Eric, has come. What we've said to ourselves, I think, is that it's a multi-departmental thing, and that Jim and Jessica are working on, because it's not just wayfinding for parking now. There's the signage is, very busy and out
Okay.
there for everything.
All right.
Okay. Right?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point though, Eric, because I think that's what Jim's goal is, right? I think Jim's goal in thinking about this and bringing it to you is the fact that there's a lot of signs, and it's kind of confusing for people when they want to go and park to be able to read all the signs and make sense of them, right? And so instead of putting signage on every, at every spot to be able to indicate what parkers should be doing, maybe we've sort of overdone that a little bit. And I think what Jim's trying to do in his goal is to dial it back and say, instead of having 25 signs spread across Webster Street lot that say, no parking, snow emergency, why not just have one very large sign that can be lit up the 3 times a year that it's required or something? But then that would eliminate the 25 signs. So I think, not to go on about it, but I think the overarching goal is to take a look and say, like, do we really need all these signs? And if we do need the signs, where do we need them, and what should the wording be? And I think that, Chairman Hardin said before as well, maybe some of the language on the signs, we should be looking at that as well. And I think that's something that Jim and Garrett have been looking at as well, right? So not only where are the signs located, but what do they say?
Excellent. Beautiful.
All right. Excellent. So you're gonna send us a little bit more visual information on that.
Yes,
Garrett, Jim.
we'll have that for your next thing and we'll get it done. Yep.
All right. So I'm going to jump around a little bit here because I'm interested in a couple of things here. Like I want to hear from Vanessa on the bollards, or an update on what's going on there. Are you still with us, Vanessa?
I am here, yes.
Hi. Is there an update on the bollards on Wall Street, in the Wall Street area?
Mike, I don't think I was the one, at least I didn't get the impression that I was gonna get back to you on that.
Oh, okay.
But I can give you my 2 cents, just to remind you guys why we installed those there. One of the reasons why we add the bollards there was because we have to make sure that when those cars back up into the space, they do not have the rear of the car over the sidewalk. So that's why the idea of the bollards was just to keep, usually we have something similar when the cars park in a regular space, but we usually have the tire stops in the space. In this case, we'll have to add those diagonally, right? What will even kind of make it more confusing. And we were afraid that people still would back up because they were not seen. And there were some residents and some of the neighborhood association in Wall Street, they were concerned about some of the cars hitting existing trees. So there are a couple of factors there. So we don't want the cars, particularly if you have, for instance, a truck, a van, where you can have a lot of space in the rear that will be really over the sidewalk, right? And make the sidewalk a little more narrow. The second would be that we don't want them to hit existing trees or existing poles. So that was the reason behind adding the bollards behind each space. And then there was the concern about, okay, if we're gonna now hit the bollards, the cars will hit the bollards. And that's why we came up with the idea of putting some kind of a plastic so the bumper, if hits it, doesn't damage the cars. So that is the whole idea why that got installed. And I believe that you guys were the ones that came with the idea of adding bollards there. Because I remember that was actually purchased kind of not through DPW, was kind of a last minute that we had to add in through TMP. So it wasn't a DPW request, was more like a TMP had to do that purchase. So I think that maybe TMP can look at a different option. But we have to make sure that the cars stop without going over the sidewalks.
Right. So I think, and you're right, but I think since then, all the feedback that we've received has led us to at first we thought of recovering them to match the decor of the area a little better. And then finally, we decided just to remove them. Obviously, we can't remove them. We can't remove the safety of them. But, putting the tire stops in the space is probably the best way to go. But we definitely want to, I think we definitely all agree that we want to take the ballards out. Or, basically doing what the neighborhood is asking us to do, really. I mean, which is really all we ever do anyway.
If we reverse the reverse angle parking to nose in parking, and I know, I remember, Vanessa, statistically, you said that reverse angle parking is safer and all that, but there is a lot of nose in angled parking around the country. Would that eliminate your concerns about people, driving over the sidewalk?
Well, we usually have the tire stops on those spaces when it's in angle.
Okay.
Or we have already that overhang that we leave, depending on what it is. And we have that throughout. On Liberty Square, we have those.
At Liberty.
So usually,
So maybe
go ahead,
go
Jess.
ahead. Maybe there's an opportunity to look at different options, right? I think the whole entire goal of this is to be able to get rid of the fluorescent yellow bollards that are all up and down Wall Street, right? And so one of the things that we did talk about was covering the bollards, and then we had talked to a number of people about actually removing the bollards and seeing if that was an option. I'm wondering if maybe those concrete, I don't know what they're called, Vanessa, but the concrete curbs that are put in the tire stops, maybe that's an option. But I think, I think the goal for this conversation is to say what is possible in order to be able to remove the fluorescent yellow bollards off of Wall Street, right? And I think that that's sort of the goal here. So if there is a safety, and then the other piece of it too is that I think that we've all sort of noted that the placement of the bollards seems a little bit off too. So then is there a way to, one, remove the bollards off of Wall Street, and then two, do we need to install something else to ensure safety? And so is that a tire stop, or is that something that is more, that is not sort of as aesthetically just, obvious, I guess, or is a little bit more clean and streamlined? And I think that now that back and angle parking has been launched for a couple of years, we're in a much better place now to be able to kind of make that change. I think that the argument a couple of years ago was that it was a new thing for Norwalk, that we hadn't really done it before, and that people would need to know that it's back and angle parking. But I think we've kind of gone over that hurdle at this point. So I think, one, if we were to remove let's try to figure out a creative way to remove those bollards, and two, if it's a safety issue, it may be that the tire stops are an option for us.
I just want to add one thing for the tire stops that I remember. One of the reasons I believe why we also didn't put that in was because of plowing. Because then what will happen is that those will be pretty much in angle, and then the plow will just go through. We're not going to be able to see. And I think that when you do the rear parking, I believe that the length of the car that overhangs over the sidewalk in the rear is longer than it is on the front, on some of the cars, and that's why we had to add that. But there were some people that were very, very concerned about the trees that could get damaged. So that was, I remember that when those designs presented, there were a few comments about it. So I'm just putting the ideas there.
Okay.
We can definitely, between DPW and TMP, we can try to see if there are options. I don't know what the rest of the country is doing, but I believe that we can look at it and maybe come back with something else. I don't know if Jim or Garrett, they have other ideas for that.
That would be great if you guys could.
So
take
I
a
was
look at that.
I was just running through some Google images for reverse and angle on-street parking. I've not seen any that have a bollard, because I was just looking to think, what are the other stops? And so I haven't seen any that are on here that have a bollard. I do, while we don't do plowing, I share Vanessa's concerns on plowing. I don't know how we would plow and have, any wheel stop in the road and not break our equipment. So I would be concerned about that, but I'm just trying to run down through some images now. I'm just not finding any other stop that that's there except for the curb, in all.
What we can try to do is, what about if we take off a couple, see how that behaves without it, you know?
Yes.
Slow it down, yeah,
Plant-
but transition it away, take a little some, so it's not all gone at once.
Yeah, I think that, you know, maybe we can take, my suggestion is we can at least try to get the ones that doesn't have any trees or any obstruction behind, and then we ask enforcement to take a look, take a couple of pictures on how the cars are parking on those spaces.
Vanessa,
And then we can take from there.
are planters, Vanessa, an option, or is that something that might get damaged?
Sorry, Thaddeus, what?
Planters.
Are planters an
Well,
option?
We have to put something that we don't have the liability that we damage the cars. Unfortunately, the drivers there will hit it, you know? So we have to just, that's why also when we set up the trees on the street, we don't want them very close to the curb, the same with the signs, right? We have to have at least some room from the curb. We can try that but we have to keep, when we get to the sidewalk, we have to make sure that we have ADA clearance. So we have to keep clearance. We have to then set up the planters in a way that the cars are not gonna hit right away. But we can try, you know, I think that we can maybe try to go out there next week and then try to locate a couple. We take it out and then we see how it behaves.
I want to make a comment about the wheel stops too versus snow plowing. You know, I understand the difficulty here, but if we're going to leave the bollards in place, so we're trading difficulty of snow plowing for something that is visually awful and ultimately economically damaging to the neighborhood because it looks so bad. The snow
Judge, but
plowing-
we're gonna remove those if we put in. The plow will not gonna be able to see.
I
You
know, but
It's not that will damage the plow. The plow will just
no.
gonna go run through, so will last us one season.
I'm not saying, I'm saying we do something, maybe somebody, DPW goes there with a snow blower and the people know that the parking stop with the wheel stops are there. Plowing isn't the only way to clear the snow, and it's not like it's miles of wheel stops, it's a couple of blocks. I'm just saying the trade-off is it visual and economically damaging, or do we spend a little more money to make the neighborhood appealing, you know, by spending more money on snow removal? That's what I'm just looking at it that way.
Well, I don't think, you know, if bollards at the rear end of these parked vehicles isn't part of a typical rear back end parking scenario, then why is Norwalk unique? And, you know, why is Norwalk one out of whatever Jim just Googled to try to find? Why is Norwalk unique to all those situations?
But right on Elizabeth Street, we have reverse angled parking, and I don't believe we have bollards there. I don't know if, I mean, I don't think that's private parking, but if
It is, those are private parking.
Okay.
Okay, but I think what we heard from Vanessa is like, we'll take a look, you know, let's do an experiment, right? I think where we are right now, we do an experiment, we remove half of the bollards, we make sure that behavior, or not whatever bollards, we make sure behavior doesn't go crazy. And then we keep it on the agenda to talk about, right? Maybe?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I mean, I just don't know why back end parking has to be different in Norwalk than anywhere else. But yeah, I would agree.
So then Vanessa, could you look at that for us, and we'll also take a look around. I honestly have to go look myself. I haven't, it's been since we installed them, since I've been down to look at them, and I'm trying to picture it in my head and I can't, but.
Sure.
Take another look and we'll come
I
back.
can go
We'll come
out
back
with
to
Garrett and Jim. I can walk there next
Yeah.
week.
Excellent.
That should be a
we'd be happy
sunny
to.
75-degree day, so. we
Yeah,
can
some
go
nice day.
around.
Okay, good.
We can coordinate that.
Yeah.
Park in front of Buckley Ryan's restaurant.
Although it will only be me because somebody else will be a dad next week.
Oh, nice.
Also, hopefully it will be on Wednesday, the 5th, because
yeah,
it's my
odds are.
birthday. So only great people is born on the 5th, so the baby will come on the 5th.
Wow.
All right.
All right, let's
I
go.
don't know if my
Let's
wife's
do.
gonna appreciate the extra 24 hours of labor, but
Let's do the The last thing here on the list that I want to talk about really is the art exhibit and expansion. Who is going to talk about that?
All right, so,
Jim.
so in your, okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't muted. So, again, in the email that I sent you are the two proposals that he made for River Street and for Sono. It has in there, so the each proposal is very similar. It's, a 24 by 36 enclosed frame that'll allow him to rotate artwork in and out. The Norwalk train station already has some of these, so you'll see, what it is. But there's I think it's an easier way for us to put it in there. I think his curating fees are the same as the Maritime Garage at $700 a show. He will handle all the show theme concepts, creating the theme graphics, social media, coordination with the artists, displaying the artwork, getting the prints made, etc. It's quite a bit of work, he says, and I agree with him. We were particularly talking about how we could engage this with student arts. Maybe it could be a variety of different things, but I think that finding a way to engage, our schools, I think it has to be a conversation that we would have with the superintendent, making sure they're on board for this. And, but he was telling me he has contacts in with the Board of Ed, as well as Norwalk Community College. And we can, like this April is Poetry Month, right? And imagine if for Poetry Month, poems written by our kindergartners all the way up to our students at Norwalk Community College are featured in the garage or in the train station. I think it could be a really cute thing. It's $700 a show, not a lot of money. It provides another level of interest in our facilities. I think that's it. Right, we would buy the frames, install them, and we have them there for a variety of different purposes.
So is this an Arts Commission program or Parking Authority?
So I think it's the Parking Authority, really. It's just finding a way to add some visual interest to our structures, right? Was my thought. Look, I'll be honest with you. I've always wanted to do some art with our school kids, and I've never had the bandwidth to do it. I talked to Bob, and Bob's like, "Oh yeah, you can do it." And I thought, like, from the time I was in New Haven, I really wanted to do this because I think that garages are just, they're empty and they don't have a soul, right? And I think that finding a way to make them a little interesting. I thought, hey, maybe in the Yankee Doodle garage, we get people to park, some, first graders gonna say, "Mom, my poem's written up on the stairwell," and they have to go and see it. And I don't know if anybody's gonna do it. I don't know if it'll fall flat on its face. I just thought it was kind of fun. But I'm happy to go either direction. Just wanted to put it out there. My thought is, I'll throw out a lot of stuff, throw on the wall. Well, what sticks. What you guys say you're an idiot, then I'll just walk away and come back next month with something else.
Well, in the train stations, it'd be awesome to combine this with the charging stations. Maybe. So that, since the charging stations are going to be in the middle of the space, then, maybe put those school kids' artwork on those.
Yeah, but the charging stations are relatively small. We'd have like one on each side, so.
I think this is a great idea, and it's also, down at the Maritime Garage, there used to be these art exhibits, and
they're still there.
What's that?
They're still there. The next show is going to be Bloom or Splash.
But that's not, there's an opening, and that's accessible to the public. But to me, this is much more accessible to the public. It's like, it's just there.
It's there, yeah.
And it's, that conference room is a conference room, but it doesn't need beautification. These stairwells are bleak, empty places. And I just think it's a great idea because it's one more thing to make Norwalk look that much better, just like removing the bollards, just like painting, the Haviland deck black, removing signage. I put it all in there. I know, you may not say this is a parking issue, but because it's in a parking garage, to me, it is. And we want people to have a great parking experience.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not a parking issue. I find it very interesting. I just don't, when I see someone else's branding on it, I don't know how that settles with me. But you bring up the Maritime Garage, and this is a different topic, but there's a giant Norwalk Hospital billboard inside the Maritime Garage. I don't know when and where that came from, but I'd rather see artwork in places like that as opposed to an advertisement that's literally a billboard.
Well, I think you're getting paid for that. That's why.
Who's getting paid?
The parking authority should be getting paid because the Hartford Healthcare approached me in Norwalk, in Stanford, about it as well to pay for the advertising on the elevator doors. So,
well, to the best of my knowledge, I haven't seen any reporting of that in our finances, but anyway, that's a different matter. But I would absolutely pursue this further. Remote locations and remote stairwells don't make sense, but the highly trafficked ones, yeah, I think it's great.
So
Okay.
do we?
And I would say a good segue for that. My thought on that, Jim, is that I got to go stand in the stairwells. I gotta go see him. I gotta go stand there.
well, we have a walk coming anyway. Mike, so.
Yes. All right. So
Who's
then
the dog?
we'll bring it up again. Somebody's dog. That's all right.
Who's
All right.
dog
The
is that?
last thing on the agenda before number 8 is there any update at all for the adjudications and the process of appeals? Have we come anywhere? I know City Hall's not open yet, but have we done anything about getting back to the appealing process? Is there anybody
So
out there?
So the answer, Mike, is no, we do not have an update,
Okay.
but I will promise you a positive update for the next meeting.
Okay, it doesn't, positive or negative, I just wanted an update because it is something that we have to keep on our plate and remind ourselves that we've shut it off a year ago, and at some point we have to turn it back on. So, okay.
We definitely do need to turn it back on. I think one of the challenges is that the appeals are going on for the assessment that went on. So our legal department is processing those, which is it's not an excuse by any means, and it's actually not a reason to limit or delay the processing of appeals for the parking authority. So we'll work with folks at City Hall to be able to make that happen. And I think from our standpoint, we really need to get moving on that. And the legal department has not in any way, shape, or form said that they are too busy to help us do that exercise. So let me connect with Staffy and Jim after the meeting, and we will have an update for you next month. But it is definitely something we've talked about for the last couple months, and we need to get it back up in order. We need to be able to clear those appeals out.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, Tom, it is your agenda.
Wait, I got.
Judd.
Yes, two things. One, I got a call from a retailer on Wall Street, and he loves the 15-minute parking. He asked, but he said the enforcement of them is very hit or miss. He said 1 week it's almost non-existent, and the next week it's very heavy. And he just asked if LAS could be a little more consistent with their enforcement of the parking, of the 15-minute parking spaces. He said they're very helpful to his business.
Where is this?
On Wall Street.
Okay.
So.
Rocky's listening.
Yeah, yep. And then the other thing, Jim and Garrett, I brought this up with you before, and I left a message the other day. The luggage store on Wall Street, it's got a paper sign in the window that says open. And to me, that's a sign of a business that's struggling. And there's no parking right in front of that spot. It's when we met down there, Jim and Garrett, it was one of those places, and I just want to keep pitching for a 15-minute or a full-time parking spot in front of the coffee shop and the luggage store, because they both would benefit from it, and it's only paint. So, but take a look, you'll see that guy's got a sign there that is not a good sign to me.
Yep.
So that's it. Have at it, Tom.
Okay, I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second? Eric seconds that. All those in favor? Ladies and gentlemen, it was an exciting, fun meeting. Thank you so much for your time and energy on this. And we'll see you in a little while.
The
Have a good
pleasure is
night.
all.
Thank you.
Good night,
Night.
Bye.